But yeah, as you guys might know, Nathan J. Robinson writes for Current Affairs. I think he's like the lead editor of Current Affairs. And he recently pinned a piece talking a little bit about his criticisms of the John Fetterman campaign, which has been one of the more successful campaigns of national level Democrats running for Senate. Very successful campaign. He's currently up in the polls against Dr. Oz, who's, of course, the Republican nominee in Pennsylvania. And apparently, Nathan J. Robinson has some beef, has some issues with the way Fetterman is running his campaign, with the way he's kind of constructed this senatorial campaign. Anyway, he took to Current Affairs to pin this piece, and Kyle Kulinski of Secular Talk decided to respond in video form. And I thought this was a really, really interesting kind of response to the argument laid out by Nathan Robinson in his piece. And surprisingly intense too. Kyle gets a little bit more aggressive than I was personally expecting, really calling out Nathan Robinson. I wasn't just exaggerating in the title, guys. This is pretty intense.
Yeah, it's solid. And look, I think Nathan in this piece embodies why the left always loses so well. He just can't help it but just take anything that shows that an inch of success and like, oh wow, this is actually relating to people. The left needs to turn its nose up at it and be fucking boring as shit, stodgy, like fucking just, I don't know, the exact fucking image that everybody who hates leftists has of us.
All right, y'all. So Nathan J. Robinson of Current Affairs magazine wrote an article, and it's about John Fetterman. Now, John Fetterman is running against Dr. Oz. It's for the U.S. Senate seat in Pennsylvania, and he's been very effective, let's say. And my evidence for that is he's up in all the polls. Now, that's impressive, especially because there is a wave Republican election that is supposed to happen. You know, the conventional wisdom is like, well, whenever the White House is won by one party in the next midterm election, the other party usually has a wave. And in recent history, that's accurate. Now, I don't think it's a law of nature. I don't think it is perfectly cyclical. I think if you govern effectively, then you can break that streak. But recently, since neither party really serves the will of the American people, that has happened. So Fetterman is one of the only Democrats who's up. And he's running a very interesting and different campaign. So Nathan J. Robinson is a leftist writer, Current Affairs magazine. And here's what he says. John Fetterman should ditch the extremely online messaging. Okay, so let's read some of his argument before I say anything on the topic. Relentlessly trolling Dr. Oz on Twitter is funny, but we desperately need a campaign with a strong, clear, progressive agenda. One of Bernie Sanders' best qualities is that he is laser focused on the issues that matter most to everyday people. You cannot get Bernie off topic. He does not want to talk about himself. He even resisted criticizing his opponents. Bernie is the most on-message politician in American public life, hammering relentlessly on the need for adequate healthcare, tackling the climate catastrophe, and raising the minimum wage. Ben Burgess and I recently analyzed the debate that Bernie did with Lindsey Graham, in which Bernie cleaned Graham's clock in large part because Bernie focused on exposing how Republicans do not care about the needs of working people. So I broke that down as well. I broke that debate down as well. And I agree with their assessment that Bernie obliterated Lindsey Graham. And of course, obviously, needless to say, I'm a huge Bernie supporter. This is an important source of Bernie's appeal. People get the sense that he is not in politics because he enjoys it. He does not seem to enjoy it, but because he is devoted to improving the lives of others. John Fetterman is the Democratic candidate for this year's Pennsylvania Senate election. It's a U.S. Senate election in Pennsylvania. He was a Bernie supporter, and so Democratic centrists disliked him at first. But Fetterman trounced the boring centrist he ran against in the primary. Now that Fetterman is critical to Democrats retaining control of the Senate, the party is funneling money into his race. I like John Fetterman a lot and have high hopes for him. He speaks movingly about the work he did improving the economic health of down-and-out Braddock, Pennsylvania, when he served as its mayor. Fetterman seems to genuinely care about his city. Pete Buttigieg, on the other hand, seemed to very obviously be using his position as mayor as a springboard to higher office. Fetterman is currently recovering from a stroke and has had to campaign mostly online. He has certainly embraced the online aspect of campaigning, using Twitter to relentlessly troll his opponent, celebrity Dr. Mehmet Oz. Most of Fetterman's barbs attempt to paint Dr. Oz as a carpetbagger who had not spent much time in Pennsylvania before running for Senate there. A Fetterman ad shows images of Dr. Oz's New Jersey mansion of a video of him kissing his star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame and says he's not one of us. Fetterman has put a great deal of effort into pursuing his line of attack, going so far as to get Jersey Shore's Snooki to record a message to Dr. Oz. Previously, to troll Oz, Fetterman hired a plane to fly a banner over New Jersey welcoming Oz home. Is that what campaign dollars are going toward?
Pause it. Yes. Yeah. You think the campaign dollars should go towards winning a fucking election, Nathan? Are you dumb as rocks? Hello. That cost him 350. I don't know if you have no idea how elections work, Nathan. Let's start there. Let's just pretend that this is day one for you, right? You fired all of your real socialist staff, and so now you're having to spin your wheels on your own for once. And let's just take a real fucking look at this for a second. Okay. Do you know how much it costs to get anything on the fucking airwaves? Let's say you don't. Hundreds of thousands of dollars in money needs to be spent to get on airwaves on television in a meaningful way in a Senate race, in a U.S. Senate national race. Okay. It cost him $350 to get that clip from Snooki that went viral and was seen by millions and millions of people, right? I imagine a fuck ton of them in Pennsylvania, okay? And not just people in Pennsylvania, people who are going to send him a fuck ton of money from outside of Pennsylvania, people with a lot of extra cash to burn, right? Unlike those poor motherfuckers in Pennsylvania that we want John Fetterman to represent, right? It's going to be the more opulent people who are like, oh, that was fucking hilarious. Let me send that guy $100 because they have $100 to send him, right? That was genius. That was a work of art politically. Are you fucking dumb? The plane over, this is all brilliant. And if you can't see that, then you're exactly what is standing in the way of the left succeeding, because you cannot fucking let yourself do anything that is remotely likable, that is remotely popular, that makes you relatable to any other person on this fucking planet that doesn't want to just read Marx and jerk themselves off in fucking purple clothing.
Fetterman's latest stunt is starting a petition to get Dr. Oz inducted into the New Jersey Hall of Fame. Fetterman's tactics have certainly attracted press coverage. The New York Times notes his towel-snapping virtual campaign of sassy online memes, and the Daily Beast asks, could John Fetterman shitpost his way to the Senate? I'll be honest. I think all of this is stupid and morally frivolous, and I wish John Fetterman would not do it. Even if it turns out that in 2022 you can shitpost your way to the Senate, you shouldn't. A progressive Senate candidate should force a discussion on.
Also, what does morally frivolous even mean? Do you even know what he's trying to say there?
He's saying that it's like morally, like it's not the best turn of phrase, right? And Nathan loves to hear himself spin yarn more than anybody in the goddamn world. Matt Taibbi actually roasted him fucking better than anybody for that one time. Anyway, but anyway, yeah, I think what he's trying to say is that he's basically just trying to say that it's like vacuous, right? That it's like morally a waste of time, that there is nothing ethical about doing this, which is fine. But it's like, what you're saying that you would rather him not use this strategy that's going to get him into the Senate, which you already said you agree with way more of his policies. And it's like, I have criticisms of John Fetterman too. We've never hid them. We've never been simps for the guy. I don't think Kyle simps for the guy. He brings up his criticisms of him later on in the video and the Vanguard wink. So yeah, sit tight, guys. We have more to say.
Things that matter, not get the media talking about how sick his Twitter burns are. I also think Fetterman is taking a big risk here by assuming that Pennsylvania voters can actually be influenced by memes. D. Ray McKesson found out the hard way that being big on Twitter doesn't translate into electoral success when he badly lost Baltimore's Democratic primary election for mayor. Okay, let's pause here.
I like how he brings that up, but fails to bring up instances of the opposite being true, where candidates, their social media presence clearly has helped them win. And I hate to bring this up or make this comparison, but did we forget Donald Trump? Did we forget about Donald Trump, the 45th president of the United States, who basically shitposted his way into office? Like, let's not act like this isn't a possibility. Like, there's no precedent for this happening. Just saying.
Yeah, and I can already hear Nathan, well, I don't want the left to just adopt the tactics of Donald Trump, right? It's like, you don't want us to win? You don't want the left to win? No, you don't. You would rather pout about how everybody is doing it incorrectly while you still have your virtuous fucking textbooks and shit, instead of actually getting some meaningful, tangible results for people on the ground in Pennsylvania, bro. That's what this is about. Okay, I don't think that John Fetterman's perfect, okay? But I would vote for the guy because I do think that he means what he says when he's like, he trying to tell me that his campaign videos aren't substantive. One of my favorite things burned in my brain about John Fetterman, right, is he had this campaign video where he's got a Carhartt coat on and basketball shorts. It's probably cold as shit outside. He doesn't care. He's just an everyday working guy, and he's walking, and then he sits down in a chair, and he's like, if you think that another human being should sweat and toil for $7.25 an hour, vote for the other guy. Yeah, that's the kind of energy that people relate to. That is good messaging. That is policy messaging, okay? This dude is union as fuck, okay? And we are seeing a union renaissance in this country. More unions are started this year than there have been for fucking 2-3 decades probably before then. I looked at the numbers one time. I don't have them fucking in front of me. Okay, it's been a lot more unionization this year than we've seen for a long time. That's good. That's powerful. This is a guy that fucking believes in unions. I don't know if he believes in anything else besides those two issues, but I know Dr. Oz doesn't believe in those two issues, and I think it's clear as day that Fetterman does. I think he would definitely push to legalize cannabis. I think that he would definitely have better immigration policies than Dr. Oz, who would just parrot the Republican line like he's doing, because he's illustrated throughout this entire run that he's willing to just abandon any principle that he had in order to succumb and court the Republican base like he did in the primary with his fucking, just big name. But anyway, we can keep playing. I don't want to get on fucking too many hills.
Here's the thing, Nathan. Fetterman is up in all the polls right now. So, is it possible Fetterman loses? Absolutely. In fact, I would put it 60-40 that Fetterman does lose. I think Dr. Oz has a better chance in this election, namely because it appears to be a Republican wave election year. Now, having said that, Fetterman, I think, is putting up the best fight he possibly can. And I think it's a little glib to compare Fetterman to D. Ray McKesson. As far as I know, D. Ray McKesson has had no electoral success. John Fetterman has already had electoral success. Now, beyond that, the argument that this is just, well, it's just memes and it's just online trolling and shitposting, don't agree. And here's the reason I don't agree. The heart of the message from John Fetterman is not just that Dr. Oz is a carpetbagger, which is accurate, by the way. It's an accurate attack. He is that. He is from New Jersey. But it's also that he's an out-of-touch elitist who's not going to represent working people. The line of attack is not just, hey, man, you're from New Jersey. It's, you're from New Jersey, you are mega wealthy, you live in a mansion, you're out of touch, and I am a Pennsylvanian, and I represent hardworking Pennsylvanians. That's the line of attack. It's a mischaracterization to say it's just extremely online trolling. It's in part trolling, but at the heart of it is an accurate argument. Now, by the way,
also, let's just clear something up. It's the year 2022, guys. Where do you think most discourse happens? Online. Like, where the fuck do you think the discourse? And I don't like that. I wish that, everything wasn't so digital these days, but it fucking is. Most of the conversation, most of the discourse, it's occurring online. And the people that John Fetterman are reaching online are real fucking people, real people that can send him donations, real people that can vote for him, etc. It's not like it just means nothing for him to be popular online. That's huge. Having name recognition, having people know who you are, excited about your candidacy, excited to, get behind you. That is a big part of being successful in politics. It's half the battle. And again, it's a kind of an uncomfortable truth, but sometimes policy is only like half the battle in politics. Sometimes having more name recognition, having a bigger personality, having more charisma, sometimes that is like at least 50% of the game here. And again, that's not necessarily a good thing. I wish things were sometimes a little bit more substantive. But if John Fetterman could find a lane in which he can clearly excel in the way he has, then I think that's overall a good thing for his campaign, given that his campaign stands for substantive issues, policies I agree with, and a pretty solid populist leftist agenda.
Yeah, on top of that, if you look at all 50 states, Pennsylvania does happen to be in the top 10 for active Twitter users, so that's not nothing. And if you're going to be a lumberjack, you got to go where the forest is.
I've admitted this before. If I was advising John Fetterman, I wouldn't have said go with a carpetbagger argument. But now watching him do it and seeing how effective it is in terms of the results, I say, oh, that was actually a brilliant argument. Because it works. People in Pennsylvania, regardless of their political affiliation, can understand and acknowledge the objective reality that Dr. Oz is just trying to buy a Senate seat from there. He's not from there. He's out of state. And again, he's elitist. He's ultra wealthy. He's not going to represent the interests of working class people. And John Fetterman will do so much better than Dr. Oz would. And so look, there's this strain of lefties who are like anti-fun. Like, okay, yeah, Fetterman can go up there and give a speech or post a 20,000 word essay, as Nathan J. Robinson likes to do oftentimes, and do a dry dissertation on the marginal tax rates. That's not going to work. That's not going to work. Now, I'm not out here saying, hey, don't discuss policy shit. I think you should mostly focus on policy shit. But I also think if you can troll and meme and shit post and it's substantive as well and it works, well, that's a win all around. Look, I find it supremely ironic that he compares Fetterman to Bernie Sanders and is like, Fetterman should be more like Bernie Sanders. That's the implication. Bernie Sanders lost, Dippy. So it's time to improve upon what Bernie did. Yes, focusing on policy is central and important and the main thing when you're talking about politics because we want to improve people's lives. But in the process of doing that, you should be having fun. You should be attracting people.
And the thing is that the other thing about this, right, is that, again, we're going to give Nathan Robinson another lesson in political campaign history, is that if you can be on the forefront of some new medium, it is always beneficial to your campaign. Let's take a look. Gavin, you already brought up Donald Trump. You cannot deny, unless you want to delude yourself into not understanding the fact that Donald Trump changed the game forever in electoral politics by his use of Twitter, by his direct tweeting, everything that he thought. A lot of it was just horrible bigotry, fucking all kinds of dog shit, lunacy, of course. But he changed the fucking game with how he did it, right? He was there. He was tweeting his life thought. People felt like people in his base who were delusional enough to support him, in my mind, they felt like they were getting the real look at him, and that was extremely beneficial to them. And also the way that he masterfully manipulated the media into giving him all kinds of free coverage. Those things were all super important, and he did a lot of that via the internet, right? You look back, who blew up because of the internet before then? Obama, 2008. He masterfully used the internet, email listing. He was so online in 2007, 2008, and he was way younger, and Hillary was not savvy with the internet. And he just kind of made himself youthful in that initial boom of social media. Before that, outsider candidate Jesse Ventura, late 90s, early 2000, right? He was campaigning using the internet. This is how people who do not have the direct, clear path to the White House get in there. They have to do something different, right? It's the same way that, fucking Kennedy was able to thrive on fucking TV, right? Nixon was a radio guy. Okay, these things always happen throughout history, and you have to be ready to prepare. You have to be prepared to respond to them in real time. And what Kyle did was he was like, I didn't see this strategy, but now it's clearly working, and we got to run with it, right? And that's exactly how Gavin and I feel. It's like, look, yeah, we know you can shitpost your way to the top now. Now what you have to do is shitpost with meaning, right? This is how people communicate now, and you can either be all like, I'm going to turn my nose up at it, or you can just swim in the muck and actually meet people where they are. You know what I'm saying? And I just think it's such bullshit to try and pretend like you are literally an online blogger. Why are you poo-pooing the online? You literally make your money online on the internet. Okay? I don't understand.
Yeah, and if you don't like John Fetterman trolling people on Twitter, then you can just log off Twitter. You'll never have to see it, and you can view the campaign in the way you want to. Like, you don't have to be on Twitter, bro. Like, if you think it's so insignificant, then just log the fuck off.
Out, if you have fun and you joke around and you meme and you troll, it's attractive to people. Now, that's not my opinion, Nathan. That's borne out in the polls. Now, ultimately, John Fetterman might lose, okay? And at that point, Nathan J. Robinson might turn around and say, see, it's because of all the trolling and the online shit posting. I would look at that and say the national mood and the fact that it's a wave election doomed him, despite the fact that he ran a phenomenal campaign. That's how I would look at it. I just want lefties lighten up a little bit and have some fun. It's okay to have fun. It's okay to be relatable. What Fetterman is doing here is massively relatable, not just to the online left, because if it was just to the online left, he'd be down by 25 points, and he's not. And he's not, Nathan. So it's just funny. You make this argument when he's up in the polls. Wait till he's down, and there might come a time when he's down again. It's a red wave election year. But he makes the argument now because he can't help himself. This reminds me of the article he wrote about Kristol and Saagar, who he's very, very critical. And there are absolutely criticisms of Saagar. I disagree with Saagar. He's on the right, or I don't know, now he might consider himself an enlightened centrist or whatever. That's fine. But you don't need to drag down Kristol to disagree with Saagar. And he did that. And now we have an effective left campaign, or relatively left campaign. And Nathan J. Robinson is, I don't like this. You should do dry dissertations where you talk about marginal tax rates and bore people. How can you look at something that's working and that's fun and is still substantive at the heart of it? Because it's not just that he's a carpetbagger, Dr. Oz. It's also that he's elitist and out of touch and not representing working people. And you disagree with it? I don't get it. One of the core problems with Fetterman's approach is that it assumes voters care more about whether Dr. Oz is from New Jersey than they do about minimum wage growth. Now, that's not fair. That is not fair. It's not like Fetterman doesn't talk about policy. He, of course, talks about policy. But he's also charismatic and entertaining. And you're focusing on the charisma and the entertaining stuff and besmirching it while pretending like he's not talking about policy. Grocery prices, healthcare costs, or gun violence. Personally, I don't actually think the carpetbagger point is that compelling. Well, look, here's the thing, Nathan. I agree with you, which is why I said if I was running Fetterman's campaign, I tell him, don't go with the carpetbagger thing. It's not that substantive. But now having watched.
And by the way, I actually disagree with that. I think the carpetbagger thing is very legit. I think it's a very good line of attack, and I think it's a legitimate one too. Like, it is a valid concern if you're electing someone to represent your state and that person has not lived in your state for like their whole life. Like, how is that person supposed to understand the issues of the state? It's not just about like this sort of like, tribalism, like, I'm from New Jersey and you're from Pennsylvania, or I'm from Pennsylvania and you're not one of us. It's not just about that. It's about understanding the issues that affect the state. And I imagine that Pennsylvania has a lot of issues that are very unique to New Jersey. I mean, I know they're close to each other, but like they have very different economies, different populations. There's a lot of things about Pennsylvania that you should want to intimately understand and be aware of if you're going to represent the state in the US Senate. It makes total sense to be like, yeah, I'm going to vote for someone that understands the state that I live in versus someone that clearly doesn't and is just trying to buy the Senate race.
Watched him do it, and looking at the results, I was wrong. I was wrong. Fetterman was right. It works. It works because it turns out sometimes people are a little silly and they think like, well, if you're from out of state, you can't possibly care about the people in state, or, somehow your ideas are less relevant now and your policies are less relevant now because you're not one of us. I think that's sort of weak too, but people don't think it's weak. People respond to it. There's something visceral and innate about it. There's something compelling about that of like, I'm one of you. He's not. Because if a candidate had good politics but was from out of state, I'd vote for them in a heartbeat over someone who had terrible politics but deep local roots. And that's why, Nathan, that's why I agree with you on that point. That's why I agree with you that it's not a persuasive argument to me. But there are times when I feel something and most people don't agree with me. And the same is true of you. Because yes, if I saw a candidate, if there was a left candidate who I loved, who was from out of state, I'd vote for them over, a New Yorker who was in state. A New Yorker who had bad politics or worse politics but was in state. So I agree with you on the substance of that criticism, but it's also possible for something to not appeal to me and Nathan J. Robinson that appeals to the average voter, and that thing works, and that's what's happening. Fetterman is appealing to an emotional sense of Pennsylvania pride and the state's suspicion of Jerseyites. Oh, God, Nathan. It's fair to say you want candidates who actually know your state well, and that there is an arrogance to rich people who simply assume they can represent any state they like. Witness Nick Kristof's entitled delusion that he could run for governor of Oregon because he was an important man who'd enjoy the job. But ultimately, what is wrong with Dr. Oz is his horrible reactionary politics. Yes, and that is also being highlighted. That's also being highlighted by Fetterman. Oz's campaign platform includes responding to the global Chinese threat, Jesus, being a dear ally to Israel, cracking down on unauthorized immigrants, escalating fossil.
John Fetterman also wants to be a dear ally to fucking Israel, so we just a PSA.
Yeah, and obviously we've talked about that at length, but one of the big issues with John Fetterman is the fact that he's said that he'll lean in on U.S.-Israel relationship as senator. So just so everyone knows, John Fetterman, far, far from perfect. I think I actually said on the Crystal Kyle interview that we did that he's sort of like an LBJ figure where he's really, really good on domestic policy, but just pretty milquetoast or just dog shit when it comes to foreign policy. And yeah, obviously the Israel thing is pretty hard to look past.
And I'm surprised that Nathan doesn't dig into that right here. He's like setting it up as if like, oh, this is the critical thing that it's like, no, dude, you haven't done your homework at all. Like, fuck.
Fuel production, pushing back on cancel culture, stopping abortion, preventing gun control, giving control of elections to the states, and giving police a powerful voice in Washington. He is running as a hard right Republican and needs to be kept out of the Senate because of what he will do to the country. Fetterman made good ads a few months back about unions, climate justice, healthcare, minimum wage. Wait. You're destroying your own argument here, Nathan. You are. You're saying, well, now look, Fetterman has been substantive. So then why are you writing this article? Why are you writing this article? It's like when he wrote the thing about Crystal and Sagar, and I was like, now I like Crystal. But then you go on to say, like, here's all the reasons why you shouldn't be sitting next to this guy. I don't know what you're doing.
It's kind of funny, too, that Kyle's still defending his girlfriend, Crystal Ball, from that smear job that Nathan wrote about Rising all those years ago. What was that, like 2 years ago? He wrote that piece with, like, Sagar and Jetty right next to, like, Hitler on the cover or something.
I don't know. Look, it's a tough line to walk, right? And we've talked about this a number of times on the show, and I've talked about it in interviews. When you're on the left, part of you wants to be like, I am the truth teller, and I'm going to keep it real to everybody. People who are not in my camp, people who are in my camp, people who are my closest allies. I'm going to keep it real, and I'm going to call people out when they're wrong, and I'm going to be the sole voice of reason. That's one instinct people have. The other instinct people have is we need to have solidarity. which kind of flies at odds, and it flies in the face of the idea of like, I'm going to call everybody and everything out. Because solidarity is, you sort of let bygones be bygones, where there's minor disagreements, sweep it under the rug, no big deal, and you move forward together. Nathan J. Robinson.
We will not let any minor disagreements be swept under the rug.
I was like, I know Kyle has us in his brain just at least a little bit when he's saying that. You know, people who have this instinct to just be truth tellers would say, fuck everything. I will say whatever I want about any of these people and burn every bridge, and I don't give a shit. It's like, yeah, you know, there's a little bit of the Vanguard in the back of his mind as he's, you know, painting that lyrical picture for us.
We will burn the entire left to the ground over minute disagreements.
And has clearly fallen on the side of, no, I'm going to be the one true voice of reason, and I will critique people, other leftists or nominal leftists, even in an instance where it's strategically dumb. Like, why would you not write an article talking about the effectiveness of Fetterman's campaign and how other leftists should copy it because it is empirically, objectively working? If you have the right...
And that's a great point. Again, like, we're not simps for Fetterman, guys. There's a number of issues, Israel being the probably chief among them, issues that I just straight up disagree with John Fetterman, straight up do. But, like, just from an objective standpoint, regardless of my personal political positions, you have to acknowledge the fact that he's basically the only good candidate the Democrats have right now at a national level, right? Like, can you think of a single other Democrat candidate that's as good as like even close to as appealing as Fetterman, just from like an optics perspective, a charisma perspective, and a policy perspective, at least when it comes to domestic policy?
Yeah, 100%. So we can keep playing a little bit.
Ideas, if you have the right policy beliefs and you can marry that with like a fun edginess that appeals to people, why would you not support that? It's unbelievable. Anyway, Fetterman made a few good ads a few months back about unions, climate change, healthcare, minimum wage, but now I keep seeing headlines about his memes and trolling. Most of this is focused on Oz's residency rather than his scary agenda or his background as a snake oil salesman. In fact, the far more devastating criticism of Dr. Oz is that he is a quack who got rich peddling false hope to sick people. Yeah, that's one of them. And but what Fetterman is doing right now is working. So he can add this to the repertoire, but I would definitely not say stop what you're doing, because what he's doing is working. You're saying stop what you're doing here and focus on this thing that I just made up, and I will pretend like I know that this thing is going to land even better than what you're doing now. Nathan, you don't know. You don't know. Give credit where it's due. The proof is in the pudding. There is at least one well-made anti-Oz ad that hits this theme hard. So you're saying he did that? I can't. Although it is also going after him for illegally employing undocumented workers. Hypocrisy, of course, but not terribly compelling. That's going to be compelling to Pennsylvania voters. And again, the numbers show it. And it doesn't emphasize enough the harm caused by his prescription of useless miracle cures. Look, Nathan, I like Nathan. I got nothing against Nathan. Him and I, in terms of our politics, we're probably 90% in agreement. But man, he's a micromanager. He's a micromanager. He's trying to micromanage this campaign into oblivion. Now, there are legitimate criticisms of Fetterman that his extraordinarily successful and cool campaign is not working, is not one of them, because it is working. As I say, maybe John Fetterman's memes about Dr. Oz residency will be compelling to Pennsylvania voters. He's leading the polls at the moment. Why are you writing this article? But
also, sorry to keep butting in, but I just got to say, like, when you're running a campaign, the point is to win. And like, I know a lot of people on the left don't want to hear this, but however you got to get there, sometimes you got to do what it takes to get there. The end sometimes justifies the means. And if it means, you know, being memey on Twitter and trolling people on Twitter, who fucking cares? If we have to stop talking about the policy for 5 minutes, who cares if it means you're going to win the election ultimately? And that's something the left needs to really take to heart, I think, because so many people on the left are such fucking purists. They're such goddamn fucking purists. We saw this during the Bernie Sanders campaign. Remember when Bernie was endorsed by Joe Rogan? And of course, like any sensible candidate would, he tweeted out the video saying, hey, look, you know, the number one most popular podcaster, someone that reaches hundreds of thousands of millions of listener ears, you know, this person likes my candidacy and is endorsing me. Of course, any candidate in their right mind would tweet that out. Because why? Because it's going to help you win. Not because you agree with everything Joe Rogan has ever said, not because you're 100% in alignment with the politics espoused on the Joe Rogan Experience. No, that's not why he did it. It's because one simple reason: it was going to help him win. And then what happened? All these fucking butthurt losers on his staff decided to rebel and be like, this isn't pure enough for me. I don't like Joe Rogan because of these reasons. Therefore, you shouldn't, you know, advertise his endorsement. Why the fuck are you on this campaign if not to win it? Why the fuck are you a part of a campaign if you don't want it to win? The point is to win so that you would then accomplish the policy goals. Not in the the point of a campaign is not to get the policy goals passed. The point of winning is to get the policy goals passed. The point of the campaign is to win. So in this instance, John Fetterman is doing things that are going to help him win. Even if Nathan J. Robinson doesn't specifically like people fighting on Twitter or trolling their opponents or being rude and being impolite, guess what? It doesn't fucking matter, because all of those things have helped to get John Fetterman in the news, to increase his name recognition, to increase his popularity. And guess what? All three of those things are going to do. They're going to help him fucking win, which is his job right now.
Yeah, look, I always say this, and I agree 100% with what you said. I think that was very well put, that we will become John Fetterman's biggest fucking critics the day after he fucking gets signed into I'm not lying to anybody about the problems he has. You want me to talk to you about the problems? I've fucking done it, okay? But what I'm telling you is that I think it is easy math. Hello, dumb fuckers. That Dr. Oz is a way shittier candidate and will be way worse for the people of Pennsylvania, okay? So let's focus on, let's see, okay, John Fetterman gets in there, and then it's like, okay, now you're objectively better. Let's start critiquing you. I just think we have to start doing that. Otherwise, we are going to lose for goddamn ever, guys. Like, we have to start learning from our mistakes. We have to start putting fucking, I just don't know what else to tell people. Like, we have to start winning a little bit on the margins, a little bit, to get some energy going back for the left. The left is fucking starched right now. You think we're going to have a third party? You're fucking dreaming, okay? We need to get some energy back on our side. John Fetterman's not the fucking guy. Of course he's not, okay? But we need a win from John Fetterman so that the guy can get some goddamn energy up. And that's what I wanted to add.
And also, if he wins, then guess what? A lot of other people are going to be comfortable running with $15 minimum wage, legalizing weed, a strong populist left platform. A John Fetterman victory will prove to a lot of campaigns around the country that, oh yeah, it's actually a good thing to lean into these issues. And it's okay to aggressively attack your opponent. That's something people want more of, and that Fetterman has really mastered. And let me tell you another secret. Not everyone, but a lot of people on the left, they secretly want their own Trump. They want a leftist Trump. Obviously not because of his incompetence once he actually became president, but because of the fact that he was unafraid to viciously attack his opponents, to troll the shit out of his opponents online, on the debate stage. People like that energy, the aggressive, I'm not going to take any shit energy, the tough guy energy. And the left needs more of that. I'm sorry, but it's true. And that's what John Fetterman represents. That's why he's winning.
Democrats who want voters to come out for them really ought to emphasize their agenda rather than just mocking their opponent. I don't know why we're gonna stop reading this now. You're setting up a false dichotomy. This is a massive false dichotomy. You can do both. That's what I try to do on this show. I talk about the issues. I talk about the policies. I talk about the things that I think would help fix the country. But we also laugh and joke and have a good time. And we're silly and we're stupid and we're funny and we're edgy and we just try to have fun with it. Nathan wants to get rid of the silly, fun, edgy, that side of it and just be serious and just talk about the agenda. Again, I love Bernie, and in 2016, I think it was basically stolen from him, and the WikiLeaks emails sort of prove that, right? But in 2020, homeboy lost. He lost. And he made a number of mistakes. And instead of looking at that Bernie campaign and saying, well, how do we improve upon it? Nathan J. Robinson's like, no, that's the only way to run, because I, Nathan J. Robinson, say so. But if you see something that is in the same spirit, but it's fun and edgy and online, etc., and it's working, why can't you just be like, oh, cool? Well, I said we'd stop reading. I'll just give it a little more. What will you do in the Senate? I want to see progressive candidates get beyond the economic Bill of Rights. I'd love that. I want them to show that they're not going to be do-nothing Democrats who think their job is finished when they beat the Republican. It worries me that a Fetterman ad that popped up for me on YouTube was all about how I should donate to help flip the seat blue, not about what John Fetterman would actually do as a senator. Issues went unmentioned. But he hasn't not talked about issues, Nathan. Look, are there criticisms of Fetterman? Absolutely. The Vanguard guys pointed out he's terrible on Israel. Criticize him all day long about that, and I'd be agreeing with you, Nathan J. Robinson.
I love that Kyle calls him Nathan J. Robinson over and over. Every time, Nathan J. Robinson. What do you think, Nathan J. Robinson? How about this, Nathan J. Robinson?
Yeah. And if you guys didn't catch it, he did shout us out, so I'll go back for that.
I don't think anybody missed your performance, bro.
Hey, just saying, people say, oh, we're not critical enough of John Fetterman. He literally cites us as one of John Fetterman's critics. Oh yeah, the Vanguard guys pointed out this thing about John Fetterman. Yeah, guess who pointed out? Us. Jesus Christ.
Absolutely. The Vanguard guys pointed out he's terrible on Israel. Criticize him all day long about that, and I'd be agreeing with you, Nathan J. Robinson. But this ain't it. this ain't it. The best criticism of Fetterman that I can think of is it was very suspicious to me that the Democratic establishment laid down their weapons against Fetterman. So Fetterman beat, who was it? Connor Lamb, some way worse centrist. And I guess Fetterman met with the Democratic establishment and assured them in one way or another, you ain't got nothing to worry about. I'm with you. That concerns me more than his effective campaign that's working. That concerns me more. So, and in all seriousness, if Fetterman wins, which is a question mark, we don't know if he's going to win. What I would fear is, yes, he gets to the Senate and he becomes a very milquetoast Democrat. You know, he's not in the vein of a Bernie Sanders, and he's more in the vein of, I don't know. I don't want to say a Chuck Schumer because that's really bad, but maybe he is, right? That's what worries me about him. And there are some signs that maybe.
And also, I think the worst case scenario is probably he'd be like an Ed Markey, you know, someone who's like, you know, sometimes signals the right policies, gives lip service to the right policies, but doesn't like seriously fight or seriously aggressively resist the leadership of the party. I could definitely see that happening with Fetterman. Obviously, I hope that he, you know, turns out to be more of like a Bernie Sanders style senator. But I could definitely see him becoming more of like an Ed Markey style senator. Which again, we're just keeping it real here. He's not going to be a fucking revolutionary. This guy's not going to bring the goddamn revolution. But it does appear that he's the furthest left option on the ballot for the Senate race in Pennsylvania. Sorry, there's not a fucking Green Party candidate, or else we'd be talking about them. It does appear that John Fetterman is without a doubt the furthest left candidate in the Senate race. And yeah, I'd much rather him be in there than Dr. fucking Oz.
That'll happen. But as of this moment right now, the heart of the criticism from Nathan against Fetterman is stop your extremely online trolling. I don't like that. I don't like your campaign. And that's just not good criticism, because it's possible he ends up like Bernie. He supported Bernie, right? And if he ends up like Bernie and he got the power by being edgy and online and trolling while also talking about issues, that's a win. And that's something we should mimic in the future with other left candidates, not besmirch and poo-poo and put down. So anyway, I'm not going to keep going here with this article, but you guys get the gist of it. It's not even that much longer. You guys get the gist of it. Immature mudslinging. He should stop. Ironically, and there's a good note to end this on, I sincerely believe the immature mudslinging is coming from Nathan J. Robinson against Fetterman. That's what I think. Again, you want to criticize him on policy? I'm with you. In fact, I'm certain that every policy criticism Nathan would have of Fetterman, I'd almost certainly agree with Robinson and not Fetterman. I think that's all fair game. But the micromanaging and nitpicking strategy and saying it's bad when it's objectively working, that's just dumb. So you're the immature mudslinger right now, Nathan, and you should stop. I sincerely believe you're better than this.
Yeah, and again, obviously Zach and I are pro immature mudslinging. You guys know that. Not a very big surprise coming from the two of us. But yeah, I mean, there are legitimate criticisms of Fetterman, as we've talked about, not just on this live stream, but on many other live streams. Imagine, instead of writing an article about those very legitimate criticisms, you decide to write a massive fucking multi-thousand word screed about the one thing about Fetterman's campaign that is objectively dope, that is objectively working, that is objectively successful by every single metric. Imagine that being the issue you take with the dude's campaign when there are actual legitimate criticisms to be had of the dude's politics. It really blows my mind. And, you know, I've always found Nathan J. Robinson a little bit cringy, sometimes a little bit annoying. And obviously when he's fired his whole staff for trying to form a worker co-op, that was disgraceful and we called him out for it. But I have to say, usually when I read one of his articles, despite how wordy it is, and again, sometimes kind of annoying, I usually agree with the substance of what the dude says. This time, I straight up do not. I think he is, you know, prescribing a disaster strategically, saying, oh, stop doing this thing that's clearly working. Stop doing this thing, which is clearly making you more popular. Stop doing this thing, which is massively expanding your name recognition and your ability to connect with voters, not just online, but in general, again, via the increase in name recognition. It's truly crazy to me.